Hi, this is Ren.
This is KC.
And this is All Walks of Film. So, we just saw Hereditary.
By just, we mean like 4 days ago. It's been busy.
But we kind of want to do a podcast about this because I'm not normally frustrated the way that I was with this movie. So, let's get into it.
Is this all spoilers?
Yeah, this is a total spoiler review. So if you have not seen Hereditary, I suggest you watch it and then come back to it. Also so that you can form your own opinion and not necessarily just listen to ours.
And also, like, frustrations aside, it's not like this was like a terrible movie that isn't worth your movie pass or anything like that. Like, it's still A24. It's still got like a certain level of quality to it. I didn't necessarily feel like it was like a waste of time like some movies might be. And also, just like before we get into it, I have to say that like you and I were kind of on the same page after we saw it. Everyone I've talked to has seen it has like these exact same frustrations with the movie.
I've heard some people who have loved it. I haven't really heard a ton of hate yet.
I've heard a lot of people feel kind of similarly to me, where they're like, most of the movie is brilliance and amazing, but that stupid ending that not only is stupid on its own, but like retroactively makes parts of the movie that were originally really good kind of suck. It's frustrating. That's normally, like, people aren't just like, God, I hated that movie, because it's not hate-worthy. Most of the movie is extraordinarily well done.
Yeah, so let's get into the stuff that was good about the movie, because, like, this beginning part shows a lot of promise and is one of the reasons why, even after this movie, I'm going to see whatever this director does next. So, the trailers surprisingly don't show a lot of what's in this movie, which I was really happy about, because I was afraid that the trailer gave too much away.
Mm-hmm.
But it turns out, not really. Great trailer, but doesn't necessarily reflect the movie. And at the beginning of the movie, it was a lot smarter than I had expected.
It actually was, as much as I like The Witch, and I think at the end of the day, I think I actually like The Witch more than I like Hereditary. But for a lot of the movie, I was digging Hereditary a lot more, because it was like, oh yeah, the like fairly minor personal issues that I have with The Witch are all being done like so much better in this movie. Where a lot of the horror is coming from like a more realistic viewpoint of mental illness and the real terror of not knowing if something's real or if it's in your head, or in this case, if it's real or if it's in like the character's heads. So much of it is really well done where you know at least this is what the characters believe that they saw, or that they're experiencing, or that's happening in the world. But you can kind of look at it and you're like, I don't know if that's real, and like there is something creepy supernatural afoot, or if it literally is just that they're insane and are having, you know, delusions and hallucinations and all this stuff. And that's what makes it A, more horrifying, and B, a really nice subversion of this stupid, tired, dull trend of supernatural horror in American film. I'm so sick of it. But like turning it on its head and making it more ambiguous, which was a fairly minor problem I had with The Witch, was that there's no way to look at that movie ambiguously. Which is fine, and like for a paranormal film, like it's a lot better than I would have expected, but I would have liked it to be like a, you know, because it's based on real historical accounts, I would have liked the whole like, could there be a real world explanation for this? Or is it real? You know, that area to play around in. And for the most part, the movie did play around in that very, very well. There was a lot of really good establishment without being expositional, and a lot of really good foreshadowing, a lot of great use of suspense, showing, not telling. Yeah, great sound design throughout the film. A lot of showing, not telling, and then also not showing and just letting you like stew for a little bit. That was super good. One thing from the trailer I wish they hadn't ruined, because they did it so nicely in the movie, is the reveal about like the breastfeeding grandma. Because in the trailer, Toni Collette's whole story about, oh, your grandma had to feed you, she wouldn't let me feed you, she had to feed you, over the visual of the little diorama she made of herself with baby Charlie, and the grandma with like her tit out there But in the movie, they do it really nicely, where Toni Collette is telling Charlie the story as she's tucking her in, and it's like, oh, you know, that's kind of sweet. And then a little while later, you see that scene, and you're like, oh, that's what she meant. Gross. Or you would have if it wasn't in the trailer. But there's a lot of just really smart foreshadowing and payoff throughout the film.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that the trailer was known for, and one of the things like going in, is the fact that Charlie has, I'm no psychologist, but I would assume Asperger's and Tourette's, because like the clicking with her mouth is very similar to people with Tourette's, like tics and stuff like that. It's just something they can't control. It's just something that happens, and that plays into the movie. And if you see it with an audience, anytime you hear that click, it will make somebody
jump
or something like that.
But that's what I'm saying, when like they did a really good job of kind of blurring the lines between like the paranormal horror and just like what it's like to have mental illness. And for a lot of it, I think they did a better job than perhaps a lot of movies and TV shows do. And Toni Collette, her character is really well written, and how she like keeps everything together, and she doesn't like to talk. And it kind of seems like everything's fine. And then she starts talking about, like, her life and her upbringing. And you're just like, wow, shit was fucked up. But when you have mental health problems and when you have, like, trauma in your life, that's kind of how a lot of people do react to it. They sort of are like, you know, that's just life. Until they actually say it out loud to someone and realize just how bad shit crazy and awful everything is.
Yeah, and what's frustrating about Toni Collette's performance is it's so good that during the beginning of the movie, I was like, this is Oscar-worthy. This is an Oscar-worthy performance.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And it was really funny to me, though, that she mentions in her, like, her group grieving program about how her mom has DID when United States of Terror was kind of problematic on that front. I love that show, but everyone in the world understands that is not accurate or necessarily particularly helpful depiction of DID. But if you set it aside, it's still like a pretty funny, well-written program. I thought it was funny how she's kind of like now doing something that's more realistic. Until
the movie changes.
Until the end. Until the movie changes. Yeah, absolutely.
Getting more into some of the stuff at the beginning, I thought the casting for Charlie was great. The only issue that I have with her casting is that I feel that the movie is overemphasizing how weird she looks.
Yeah, but I mean, she and Toni Collette do look kind of similar. Like, they have the same nose, especially. Mm-hmm. The same hair, same color eyes. But yeah, they place a lot of emphasis on, like, we brought in this unknown actress, and like we're putting her in this really serious role. But Charlie isn't in the film that much, and most of what she does, not as a character, but as an actor, a lot of the, like, meat and potatoes of her performance is standing around looking awkward. They don't give her a lot to do, actually.
Yeah, and then she's killed off way earlier than I was expecting, and I didn't know the movie was going to be about this, and I actually thought it was really well done, how they did it, and we'll get into this in a moment, but, like, yeah, this girl is weird. What I do like is they don't really try to explain it at the beginning, like, oh, why does she do these weird things? Why did she cut off the pigeon's head? What was she trying to make? And all that kind of stuff.
She was just trying to make a toy, which is both adorable and creepy.
Yeah,
that was the most personable thing that she had. And what I liked about the trailer was the trailer showed she was going to cut off the pigeon's head, and I was like, oh, great, you spoiled that. Except for they cut out the gory part of that. Like, they went all out with, like, showing the entire cut.
Yeah,
Ugh,
which
it was good.
Let's get into this. So Annie tells Peter, who's a total pothead, not to drink at the party and to bring his sister. And he's okay with not drinking at the party because he smokes weed all the time. And he's
not going to drink.
Yeah, exactly. But while he's driving home, she apparently, like, ate something with nuts in it at the party.
Oh, well, this was, like, a good example of how they did, like, good foreshadowing without exposition. Mm-hmm. Where, like, I mean, it was a little bit too much, but in general it's pretty good. Because they already established pretty casually how she's allergic to nuts. but nobody in the family takes it seriously enough to bring, like, medication with them to take care of her. And they're at a party, and it's so dumb that he had to bring Charlie because Annie knows he is not going to school function barbecue. She knows for a fact he is going to a house party. She knows that he is lying. And she's still like, bring your sister to a house party. Just because I don't want to deal with her right now. Which is, it's really, really good writing.
Yeah.
To write her into, like, such a dickish move like that. Because it's totally a believable, human, like, piece of shit move to do. And then, you know, they're at the party. He's trying to get Charlie to, like, hey, I want to go get high with this cute chick. Maybe I can mac on her. Well, go get cake. That's such a... Go stand by the cake. They'll give you some. I just love how he puts that. Again, it's good writing. It's really good writing.
Yeah, and if he weren't high, then I might see a problem with, like, oh, maybe try to ask around and see if there are nuts in the cake, or, like...
Well, there aren't... That's not a super common thing for there to be nuts in chocolate cake.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Like, that was super weird that they put almonds in chocolate cake, but they were drunk and high. Like, of course they put walnuts... Anyway. But also, like, they kind of established that her nut allergy isn't that big a deal. Like, she has one, but they kind of established that it's not that big a deal in, like, day-to-day life, so he wouldn't think of it.
Well, I mean, they did mention the EpiPen at the funeral.
That's what I'm saying, but did they have one?
I thought they didn't, and they said...
they didn't,
They said, we don't have the EpiPen, like, you know, does that have nuts in it? Yeah.
Yeah, but that's because if it was, like, a serious day-to-day concern, they would have the EpiPen always. But they don't, because it's not a serious day-to-day concern.
Either that, or, like, Toni Collette gets so wrapped up in her miniature work that she forgets.
Yeah, there's that, too. But, she's eating this chocolate cake with walnuts. What I don't understand is, like, why she doesn't understand that she's having an allergic reaction.
Yeah,
that one was kind of weird, but, like, okay. So she goes up to the room to find her brother, and she can't breathe, and he's high as fuck, and he's like, oh shit, I fucked up, but I'm not gonna call anyone or tell anyone because I'm high. You know, again, understandable human douchebaggery. It all works. It actually does work really well. And then when you have the car ride, everything is building up really well. The cinematography, the editing, the music, the actual suspense that has been pre-established is amping up, and it's really like a really slow burn the whole time where you're, like, genuinely super nervous, and it's not a, like, oh, I'm afraid that some jump scare is gonna happen. There's genuine concern for the characters.
Yeah, because he's on, like, a back road. It's really dark.
He's going way too fast. They're
he's trying to get to the hospital,
Yeah, they're trying to get to the hospital. She's, like, choking in the back seat and, like, kicking around, and it's, like, really kind of brutal. And it's genuinely upsetting in a human way, not in, like, a really dumb, boo, we gotcha kind of way. And then, when the serious point of impact happens, they just let you stew in it. You don't see anything. No, you don't.
I
we fought so hard about this.
I will actually argue that for a split second you see that head.
No, you don't.
You do.
You don't. No, you don't. You said that about The Witch, too. Your brain is filling in the gaps because it's a very well-made and well-edited movie. But you don't actually see it.
For anybody who's seen it, which side are you on? Once the movie actually comes out, I'll be able to give you a clear answer on this.
One way or another. Yeah. But either way... That's kind of that's, like, actually the first really serious problem in the movie is that scene, though.
Yeah, because, okay, so the pole itself has that symbol that you later see.
No, it's not that part. It's that, okay, if you haven't seen the movie, like, really just shut this off for a moment. There is no way that Charlie's head would have been, like, just cleanly popped off from blunt force trauma to the side of the head on a telephone pole. Like, I thought she was gonna have, like, a gnarly, mangled up body. But no, it's just, like, clean decapitation. Her head's left in the middle of the desert. And that is actually kind of a big problem. I tried to just let it go when I first saw it, because I was like, but everything else is really good. I'm not gonna hold this one little thing against it. But, like, the decapitation thing becomes, like, a really persistent imagery that they use. And it never makes sense. In the entire movie, it never once makes sense why there are decapitated bodies. There's not a single instance where it actually works, including this one scene that's like the big pivotal point. Oh, well, the pigeon. The pigeon decapitation is the only one that actually works.
Right, and obviously it seems to be symbolic of going crazy.
Because you lose your head.
Yeah.
But you had to work harder at it than just... Yeah, if you hit the side of a telephone pole at 90, 100 miles an hour, your head's gonna pop, like, clean line straight off.
That's one I might have to ask George Miller about.
Yeah. But like I said, I was gonna let it slide because it was really well handled. It was super disturbing, but like in a really human way. There was a lot of great writing behind it, a lot of great suspense, and then the payoff was really, really good.
Peter's reaction, the way that they focus on Peter when this moment happens is the most brilliant aspect of this movie. Like, take everything away from this movie, and this is the best moment in the movie. His reaction and him going to bed.
I absolutely agree, but I will say I wasn't that impressed with Toni Collette's performance because I was so blown away by Peter. This kid was such a good actor in this movie.
He conveyed grief in a way that was tremendously realistic and...
but quiet, not like overdone. Yeah. Really, really, really good performance from him.
The only issue that I have with Peter is he's biologically related to the family, even though he clearly looks like he's West Asian.
Yeah, but I mean, I understand they totally did that on purpose to illustrate like how he's the black sheep in the family. But again, later on, that doesn't make any goddamn sense and it doesn't pay off. But I also kind of get like, he was kind of too good of an actor to have show up for an audition and not put him in your movie.
Yeah.
You know, yes, I definitely agree. It's super distracting how, like, he doesn't look like anyone else in the family. Although there are always recessive genes. That does happen a lot. We're biological families where, you know, you have two blonde, blue-eyed parents and they have, like, the one kid who's, like, super fucking ginger. You know, something like that. So, I mean, it does happen, and I get what they were going for with that, but then the problem is that there was all this, like, all these really great moments individually that all worked very well, and there was so much good writing and direction and, like, motif and personality and purpose behind a lot of what was going into the movie, until you get towards the end where you're like, oh, and it was devil. It was devil because devil evil. The reason why I went into such detail about the whole thing about Charlie's death is because that was a really well done, suspenseful, genuinely scary moment in the movie where a big part of the terror comes from there was no avoiding this because people were dumb. But not like in a stupid, like, slasher kind of way, just in a, like, people living their lives making genuine human mistakes kind of way.
Right, and the way that Peter reacts afterwards is totally believable because...
Yeah, it is.
It's one of the most realistic portrayals of shock that I've ever seen. Like, shock after a moment. I mean, you know, I've had a situation in my life where I've had a shocking experience, and time kind of works like that. Mm-hmm. The cinematographers did a great job.
Oh, definitely.
With conveying Peter's grief as well as
and that was
shock.
Another one where, like, the sound design really helps with the suspension because, like, you know she died. You can't hear her breathing anymore, but you can't see anything, so you're kind of like, maybe she didn't. Maybe he just needs a second to, like, pull it together, and maybe she's just, like, got a little nick on the head, because that happens sometimes, you know, maybe it's all okay. And then, like, no, it's not. And you know it's not, but you're hoping. Anyway.
And then you see that frame of her head with the ants.
Even before that, with the screaming.
Right.
But here's the problem. There was so much goodwill built up into that scene, but it's all predicated on human error. It's all predicated on human error and just, like, stupid human mistake. But then with the ending, it becomes a thing of, like, no, it was devil, because devil evil. It happened because evil things happen in the world because devil. Wait, so, like, you literally wrote all of that stuff about, like, all the character motivation, all the setup with the allergy. You had like this really great performance and this really realistic situation, and you're trying to tell the viewers that like, oh, it's because the devil. It's because the devil and the devil cult made it happen.
Yeah.
What?
And
what do you mean they just made it? What, like Joanne literally ran out there knowing that they were at this party, knowing that Charlie was going to get sick, knowing that he was going to be riding down that particular road way too fast, and like planted a dead deer and like wrote the little symbol in the telephone pole? Or did it just magically spring from the ether because the devil willed it so? Like, what the...
And it's also frustrating because Joanne, who we've seen on The Handmaid's Tale, was great at the beginning. And, you know, as it was progressing, you know, you kind of see a little bit of similarities with Rosemary's Baby, and then it just is Rosemary's Baby. Which, it's really frustrating being a horror fan and seeing movies like this come out, because you can see where a film could take things in a different direction, like The Babadook, for instance. You know, you could see how like something like this could be like more metaphorical and all that kind of stuff. And then frustrating
you just see like all these horror movies that are like, we're the new Exorcist, we're the new Rosemary's Baby, and it's like, we still have The Exorcist.
Yeah.
We still have Rosemary's Baby.
This isn't
Can you be
the
like
theater.
the new movie? Can you be the new movie?
This isn't a play, you know? We still are able to watch those.
Yeah, exactly. And I know the big one that's going to come out in the comments is going to be like, what about Get Out? Yeah, like Get Out. Which, I mean, you know, horror comedy, but still, that was at least fairly original. I mean, very Stepford Wives. I know.
Yeah.
But it's still more original. That is less a ripoff of Stepford Wives than this is a ripoff of Rosemary's Baby by the end.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's Rosemary's Baby, it's The Exorcist, it's
like,
Antichrist a little bit,
you know,
with
too.
The grieving and the naked people at the end and all that kind of stuff. A little bit of It Follows, though granted,
it's still better than It Follows, for sure. The problem with this movie is just the fact that they do so much good work for the first, like, 3/4 of the movie, and then the last fourth, where they just flat out tell you, there's no ambiguity to it, it's just the devil, it's just evil, is so fucking lazy and such a damn cop-out, and it becomes really frustrating. And I was still trying to give it a pass at this point. I was like, okay, if it's just the devil and it's just gonna be evil cause evil, maybe they'll just go like all out at this point. Nothing has to make sense. You can just be like really out there and do as much as you can possibly do. They were still too reserved for that. You know, I feel like they actually did a lot of the more crazier out there stuff when it was more ambiguous. I feel like as soon as she's going through the books and you see like King Peyton and like, oh, well, they all worship him because they all want to get rich and they're possessed by the devil, then the possession of the devil thing doesn't make any goddamn... And the reason why I keep saying the devil is I know it's not the devil, but it's just vague, boring, motivationless manifestation of evil that wants to do evil things because it's evil and likes to see evil things. Like, there's nothing more in-depth to it than that, and it's super stupid and frustrating. The first 3/4 and the ending just do not fit together at all, but it's the same writer, it's the same director, who probably had a lot to say in the editing room because he's got editing experience. How did this happen? Where it's just so, like, trying to fit two pieces of a puzzle in together that just do not fit and don't work, and the lines don't match up and the images don't match up, but you're just like smashing it really hard trying to get it to fit properly.
Yeah, what's frustrating about it too is it feels so off as it progresses that it feels like there was studio interference that changed it. Like it feels like one of those experiences, but that I can't confirm that. Because
until we get the unrated cut with the deleted scenes and the extra half hour of footage.
But I can't even say that because, you know, A24 usually is hands off when it comes to this. Like, they're the one studio that's hands off from what I've been told. So, like, why they would change for this movie, maybe they're struggling with money. I don't know.
Well, to be perfectly honest, the ending is actually all of the worst parts of The Witch to me. I mean, again, I still think The Witch does it better, but, like, it felt very much like they were trying to put, like, The Witch and Hereditary in the same universe.
See,
but like at the really last minute, so they didn't really work it out.
See, the reason why I disagree with you a little bit on The Witch, and I won't get too much into this because I know that we have slightly different opinions on this.
Only slightly, though.
The Witch always stays in one person's subjective point of view. So you can make an argument that, oh, this isn't necessarily happening, or maybe it's not happening how we're seeing it because we're seeing how they experience it and remember it, like, as it's happening. Sort of thing. Like, you can make that argument with The Witch. You can't really make that argument with this film at all.
I don't think you can make that argument with The Witch, but I think that with Hereditary, you could 110% make that argument until the exact moment when Peter sees Joanne across the street. At that moment, you know, it's just supernatural. It's just devil. Never mind.
Well, and that's kind of a problem with a lot of American released horror, where it seems to only be one of two things. You have sort of your home invasion style thing. Oh, sorry, three. Your torture porn movies like Saw and Final Destination.
Where you can look at and point and be like, haha, stupid people get their comeuppance.
Yeah, but by far and away, the most popular is supernatural horror. And I've had conversations, and when I did my top 5 films that actually scared me, a lot of people brought that up, that they thought that supernatural films were the scariest. The fact that I'm not a believer in the supernatural makes those sort of themes not work necessarily for me. Now, that's not to say that a supernatural film can't affect me in ways that it affects other people. I'm just saying that, like, you got to do a lot more to convince me of something that I don't believe in the actual film.
I'm more okay when it's something like Ghosts, or something along those lines, where it's like an actual character is still the villain, that still has, like, you know, their experience and their perspective and their own moral compass, and that actually makes things a lot scarier than when it's just this blanket thing of like, oh, the thing that it's evil because it likes to be evil.
Yeah, that's a problem that I have with a lot of horror films, is like they don't want to really delve into motivations of villains, and I think it makes any film weaker. And I know some people will argue, but it's the mystery of it all that, like, that's scary, and it's like, that just seems like lazy writing to me.
Yeah, I mean, like, but I think that there is some truth to the motivational thing, though, because in America, there is a fourth kind of horror. It's not usually in movies, though, but it's more like real life crime, drama, serial killer stuff. And the reason why that's always scary is because it's terrifying to think that, like, human beings who grew up with us and could be anywhere around us could, you know, be capable of doing, like, such disturbing stuff. And, like, how do human beings who grow up and are, like, morally, you know, we have laws that are there to implement morality, even if you don't believe in it. And even still, like, there are serial killers and torturers and rapists, and, like, they can literally be anyone that you stand on the subway with. Like, that's genuinely far more scary than, like, oh, your child might be possessed by the devil one day.
But I think also the frustrating thing about this movie is those sort of things would have had more impact to the family if they were religious, which, you know, that's why I think The Witch works, because they are religious and because they see these things, that it affects them more. And since this family is explicitly non-religious, the fact that demons are affecting them and all this kind of stuff.
And they worship, like, this king of hell and, like, do ritual sacrificing in order to get riches kind of thing just comes the fuck out of nowhere. Yeah,
I mean, if that's going to be a theme in your movie, like, you know, establish it in some way, you know, or say that Toni Collette didn't like going to church when she was little, her mom, like, did something, or her mom was, like, part of this, like, weird cult, and, like, not get into it so that, like, that sort of is foreshadowing what comes later.
And, okay, maybe I totally missed something, but a big part of the mythology that I just don't get, maybe this was written on that one piece of paper, on that one book that explained, like, who the fuck King Peyton was and all that shit. Maybe it was on this one piece of paper or something like that and I just missed it, or maybe it was explained somehow or implied somehow, but I don't understand how the, like, possession, like, King Peyton's possession thing is supposed to work. Okay, so since the movie is Hereditary, and it's about, like, things passed down through the bloodline, was it, like, the grandmother was possessed, and then Toni Collette was possessed, and Charlie was possessed, because they're the Holy Trinity? So, like, it was possessing all of them? But then also, like, why was it possessing Charlie if it wants a male body, and you already had, like, a firstborn male anyway? Like, why did it just skip Peter and go into Charlie, but then need to kill Charlie in order to go into Peter? Like, what? Well, did any of that stuff make any actual sense? Because I've thought about it, and I've tried to figure it out, and I don't understand.
To my understanding, the movie explicitly said that Peyton needed a male host. Now that I think about it, is the fact that the women lost their heads, like Peyton actually realizing it was like a female body or something like that? Like, that could be like one understanding of it, I guess.
It seems to be that the reason why everyone is, like, especially, like, the grandmother is, like, super obsessive with Charlie is because she's obsessed with Peyton, and she knows that Peyton is being hosted in Charlie. You would think that that's where that connection comes from, but I still don't understand why the fuck Peyton ended up in Charlie.
Yeah, and another complaint that I had is the fact that this movie has a lot of written stuff, and my eyes did not move fast enough for a lot of it.
I mean, it's definitely a very much like, now you gotta buy the DVD and press the pause button to figure out the whole backstory behind this super dumb, lazy, half-ass thing. And I don't like talking about a movie that was, like, really, really good in these terms. But that's just genuinely how it comes off to me. I'll watch it again when it comes out, because now I just gotta know what the fuck the thing was with the bloodline and the Peyton possession and how that works. But at the end of the day, do I actually give a shit about King Peyton? Not really. It's just Satan with a P. And the P is for penis. Good job, guys.
Now, I will say that as much as I like A24 as a company, I'm getting a little weary on their supernatural / horror films. I was not a fan of Ghost Story. It Comes at Night was incredibly disappointing for the type of film that it was advertising. And yeah, I mean, they do drama great, but their horror stuff, like, this showed a lot of promise, but there was also, the one exception is The Witch, which was their first venue into horror, and honestly, their best.
Yeah, still. Yeah, I definitely think Still is much better than Hereditary.
Now, I do want to get into the production design of this movie, because, like,
there's so really much good art. Like, there are so many really great filmmakers in this movie, like editing, sound mixing, production design. Oh, so good.
Yeah, miniatures and models was kind of like what this movie was advertised for, and I kind of wish they had delved in that even more.
Yeah, but it was super interesting how it ended up being like a form of therapy for her, and it was really interesting to see her utilize miniatures like she's supposed to be doing it for work, and she's pushing off all of these jobs that are like the real responsibility in her life to make like these little models for her to like work through her emotional problems with, but are still like super gross and fucked up. Yeah, the whole thing where she's like reenacting the scene in miniatures is so messed up. And then it doesn't go anywhere. Nothing happens with that, which was kind of disappointing. And also, they could have had more of like Toni Collette actually doing the work. I guess Toni Collette didn't do, like, training for how to make miniatures, but oh well. That's okay. I still want to know what the fuck it is that the dad does. Where he can be drinking whiskey in the middle of his office at 2 p.m. and they can live in a house like that while she essentially does her hobby as a profession.
I'm going to take a wild guess just based on his office setup and the way that he has emails constructed that he's a lawyer. And that would also make sense why he has money but isn't necessarily on the job all the time.
Yeah, something like that. Something vague and ambiguous and not super important like that.
And also understanding of family dynamic, because Gabriel Byrne did like a really good job of expressing his concern about Peter with Annie. Yeah.
Dude, that dinner table scene was super good.
Yeah.
Again, that was just really great writing, really great performance, just a lot of tension.
Anytime this movie was realistic, It was great.
Yeah. But then it was just, the devil.
And what's even funnier about that is, like, instead of just saying Satan, they know it's so contrived that they literally have to change one letter. Yeah.
It's Satan with a P, and the P is for penis. Because he needs a male host for whatever reason.
Yeah, that wasn't really well explained.
Yeah. But then again, like, none of it was really well explained. Like, okay, so the mom's body was dug up and stuck in the attic. Was it Annie? Like, was it Toni Collette's character? Was it the devil? Who really knows? That's okay. Why was it decapitated? Why was her head missing? Because she was crazy? Okay, sure. But, like, but why? Like, okay, at the very end in the treehouse, you know how they took Charlie's head and they put it on the, I forget what this figure is, but it's like a really well-known piece of imagery in satanic, like, satanic, not culture, religion, but it's like the goat that's sitting cross-legged with the one finger pointing up and the one finger pointing down. You know, it's like a model that's doing the same pose, but it's got Charlie's dead head on it. It would have been awesome if it was like a 3-headed figure. At least that would make sense why you were cutting off all their heads for no goddamn reason. Like, at least do something weird and creepy and cool with it or something. You know, you have this whole setup of them as the Trinity. What the fuck does that even mean? Like, that's my problem with, like, a lot of supernatural stuff is it really does feel like it got neutered somewhere. Where, like, a lot of stuff happens, but it doesn't get explained and it doesn't pay off. Like, all of the human nature, realistic mental illness stuff, in general, has, like, good setup and good payoff. The supernatural stuff just kind of comes in and then it's gone. And it doesn't go anywhere. But there was a lot of, like, thought put into it, clearly. Like, there are a lot of motifs of, like, climbing up the ladders and, like, the creepy thing at the top, you know? Again, symbolic of the mind, where everything looks fine from the outside, but then you go up into the brain and you take a look inside and you see how fucked up and creepy everything is with the dead bodies and the satanic paganism and the naked people and all this stuff. So, like, there was definitely thought put into it. It's just a lot of it doesn't get carried through to the finished edited product when it comes specifically to the supernatural stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. And I will say that this is Ari Aster, the director's first feature-length film, which is one of the reasons why I said I will watch his next film, because
for sure.
Based on this, you know, a first film is going to have issues. Like, rarely do you ever come out with a first film that is perfect. Like, no.
Jennifer Kent did it.
Well, yeah,
the woman
and
who
Orson
did Raw
Welles
did it
too. Yes.
Orson Welles did it, yeah. But the woman who did Raw did it.
Yeah, I said rarely.
I know.
Yeah, so, yeah, rarely does somebody's first film really amount to much in their career. But based on that, I do think that Ari Aster has a promising start. However, I would like him to maybe lean back on supernatural stuff.
Or go further with it. One or the other.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's kind of like in this median where it feels like it needs to push more in one direction.
Because you could, like, if there was more, like, genuinely scary imagery in the movie, that would have been fine. But there wasn't. A lot of it just felt, like, very tame and done. You know, again, Rosemary's Baby...
They don't show anything in that movie.
They rarely show anything, and to be perfectly honest, the look on her face when she sees baby Satan is a lot more disturbing than actually seeing, like, the Satan eyes. Like, dude, that moment is so genuinely terrifying. Even though it's, like, pretty subtle, it's, like, her face with that screaming noise in the background. So freaking creepy. You can do stuff like that and really push the envelope. Or you could just go all freaking out, house, audition, visitor queue, just like batshit crazy stuff that will leave you wrecked. That works too. You could do like Tetsuo the Iron Man, you know, Serbian film, just like crazy out there stuff. And it can still be impactful. But this was just...
It felt safe.
It did. It felt very neutered. It definitely felt like something was either saved or destroyed in the editing room. You know, it's kind of like when you watch Annie Hall and you're like, this is a decent movie, and then you hear what the original movie was supposed to be and you're like, oh wow, the editing room just saved this. I wonder if like the first 3/4 were saved in the editing room and there just wasn't any way to resolve the supernatural stuff. or if there's more to the supernatural stuff that just got completely cut out badly in the final edit.
Yeah, and if there's some chance that we're misinterpreting this, like, let us know. Let us know what your interpretation of Peyton and his order, because it was not clear from my understanding. And a lot of it was they threw everything on the table all at once. Like, that part didn't even have a second to breathe, where it was just like, oh, and it's this divine order and blah, 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 and then
it's
movie's
like, yeah,
over.
the grandmother was the devil worshiper, and she kept books on the devil, and they struck a deal with the devil to get the money, and that's all you need to know, right? And to be fair, you kind of do. Like I said, we've seen this movie a million times before. Does it actually have to be explained? Probably not.
It almost feels like they're trusting you to pull from that knowledge and incorporate it into this movie, which I think, if that is the case, then they have a little too much confidence in the audience.
I will say, I'm asking all these questions and I'm saying I don't understand. I am looking forward to watching it again and like paying it more attention and seeing if a lot of the stuff makes sense. But I've asked everyone I've talked to who's seen the movie these questions, and it doesn't seem like anyone's really got an answer for any of it. Like how the possession thing works, and was Charlie possessed by the devil? Were they all possessed by the devil? Why didn't the devil just go into Peter when it needed to? Like, a lot of the stuff just isn't translating, it seems like, to people at least on a first time.
I don't know. So, what did you think of Hereditary? Let us know in the comments below, and thanks for listening.